Today on the podcast, we have an insane story of our member Dillon, who joined the Limitless program to avoid back surgery from an 11 millimeter disc herniation in the L4, L5, as well as two 5 millimeter disc bulges in the L3, L4, and L5, S1. Now, Dillon joined us in January of 2024 with the expectation that if the Limitless program was unsuccessful, he would opt for back surgery, as that is what his doctor told him was necessary. Dillon first felt a pop in his back in October of 2023 while deadlifting, and the pain intensified over the following few months. At the end of 2023, he got an MRI and was diagnosed with an 11 millimeter disc herniation and two 5 millimeter disc bulges. And most importantly, most transformational to Dillon were the words that came out of his doctor's mouth, was that the doctor told Dillon he had never seen anyone in his entire career heal from physical therapy with the extent of the spinal damage that Dillon was showing on his MRI. Those words, frankly, pissed off Dillon. It lit a fire under his butt to go ahead and try something else before surgery. He did schedule surgery for March, but instead of going straight to the surgery, he decided to enroll in the Whealth Limitless program as his last shot, thinking, hey, why not? If Limitless doesn't work, then I can always go ahead and get the surgery. I think Dillon was pleasantly surprised, as are a lot of our members. Within 5 days of starting the program, Dillon had texted me personally saying that was the first time he had stopped taking Advil for months. And within 6 to 8 weeks, his sciatica was fully gone. Dillon is now back to running, lifting, traveling for work. He does sales. Dillon is living his life free of pain, something that his doctor said would never be possible without surgery. So I will let Dillon jump into this. This is a lot to unpack, an incredible story of what's possible when you take some ownership, you put in the right plan, you make lifestyle modifications, you start to work on your movement, you start to learn about your body. So Dillon, thank you for trusting us at Whealth. Thanks for sharing your story. Congratulations. And without further ado, please, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share how we got here.
Whole life I've been just super active. I played everything from football, hockey, lacrosse, everything growing up. And then I played lacrosse and hockey through college. And that comes with, lifting, working out, being active. And then post college, I kind of got into like heavy triathlon Ironmans and lifting and whatnot. And honestly, I was pretty healthy my whole life. And then I'm assuming it just happened, like the injury itself happened just kind of overtime, overuse type deal. But the one day it happened, I was playing like in a volleyball league and I jumped down and it felt like my back kind of just cracked like normal, no pain at all. But then the next morning I woke up and I couldn't walk. And that went on for, I think like 3 days. Like I couldn't even get out of bed. Finally went to the ER and the doctor was like, no, you don't have any sciatic pain. Like you just, he called it blew out your back. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. This is something else.
Right.
He sent me home with like a week of painkillers. Honestly, they didn't do a damn thing. I still like couldn't walk. And so I went back and I was like, all right, get me in with like an actual doctor, not an ER doc. He ran the MRI. I went back a week later for the results. And the guy literally goes, well, sit down. I'm surprised you're walking. You have an 11 millimeter herniation and two bulge discs. It's basically like two separate 5 millimeter herniations above and below the big one.
Wow.
And so his exact words were, in my professional opinion, you're not going to fix this. Like you can try PT. It was through TCO, Twin City Orthopedic. He said, you can try that, but I've never seen something like this fixed without surgery. I was like, all right, well, let me see what your PTO or PT is. And he literally printed off their PT sheet and it's like 6 exercises for 12 weeks. I've been doing more than this. Like his exact words were, you should try to be as active as you can. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? He goes, well, can you like try walking for 5 minutes 3 times a day? I was like, I'm doing a lot more than that as it is. Like, I have a pretty high pain tolerance. And he was like, well, in that case, like we can schedule surgery. And I was like, all right, we'll schedule it from 12 weeks from now. Cause I had looked up your program in the meantime and it was essentially like 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever it was. But I was like, all right, let's schedule surgery for 12 weeks from now. If I'm not any better, we'll go through with it. And I called him like 8 weeks in and I was like, hey, cancel this surgery. Wow. And he was almost mad at me. I was like, what the? I mean, I get that you're getting a paycheck off this surgery, but you're like asking if I really want to cancel it. And he was like, well, are you sure you want to go down that route? And I'm like, you're the one who told me if we get this surgery, there's a high likelihood of like fusion in the future and reherniation and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I want to cancel this surgery. But no, the program was great. Honestly, I think it was more just like getting in touch with probably like my hip stuff is the most that I've seen
Sure.
a difference in, just because like
Yeah.
hockey and sports, you're always in like a, an athletic position, if you will. And I found that I had like a pretty rounded back, or not like
Hmm.
rounded, arched, if you will, the
Hmm.
other way. And so
Hmm.
like getting your pelvis to turn under, I think that was a big thing of it. But no,
Interesting.
it's been pretty incredible. Like when I'm focusing on lifting, like form and whatnot, like I'll front squat up to like 315.
Yeah, you're strong, man.
I've
Well, so
deadlifted like 450 since, and then the only time that it's acted up is like when I'm not paying attention to it, picking up my 60-pound dog.
right, right. Okay.
So
So there, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that I want to unwrap, but yeah, first off, wow, congrats. You really interesting strategy. You put your back against a wall for sure. Like, hey, I'm gonna start the Limitless program and I'm gonna give myself 12 weeks to succeed or not. Probably not a strategy that I would recommend to most people to be like, you got to heal in this amount of time, otherwise, you're a failure. But I think for you, maybe you have a little bit of a competitive edge there, which I think it worked in your favor. But I'm curious. So, Dillon, how old are you?
29.
Okay, yeah. So, I'm 27. I dealt with the herniation when I was 21. And I think no matter what age you deal with, back pain or sciatica or herniation, I think it sucks. And I think what sucks more is when you go and try to get medical help and you don't really feel like you're getting the help. Like, so how did that feel when you went in and you heard those words, like, essentially, in my opinion, you're not going to get better?
I was so mad. Like I don't know if this is a safe place call or whatnot, but I was like, I'm ready
It
to
is.
mail you a bag of shit when it got over. Because like he for one, they give you, they give you 10 minutes and then it's like they're in and out, and then you talk to their assistant, and I'm like, this guy is doing is scheduling it. Like he won't actually tell me anything that I should or shouldn't be doing, like any additional supplements to take, or like what I should or shouldn't be doing. He was like, go for 5-minute walks. And yeah, I felt really more angry than anything walking out of there for
Hmm.
sure. I was like, you're just telling me there's no other option. Like obviously reading your guys' stuff, there is other options. Maybe it not doesn't work for
Hmm.
everyone, but yeah, I've asked him if I could go back in and get a second MRI on him, and he's not willing to pay for it. And I'm like, well, I'm not giving you any more of my money.
No, I think I had a very similar experience as well when I got diagnosed with an L5S1 herniation, and my chiro pretty much told me like just keep coming back, keep getting adjusted, keep paying. And in my heart of hearts, I felt like there had to be another solution. But then all he told me was like to never squat, never deadlift, and pretty much the same thing. Like,
That's what they
honestly,
told
man,
me too.
yeah, at 21 you should stop. And I know you were kind of told the same thing. And I think what's maybe to give people or professionals the benefit of the doubt when they say that, like, hey, in my professional opinion, no one has healed from PT. But then go, okay, like, what does PT mean to you, doc? And they print out, a sheet of paper that's 6 exercises. To us at Wealth in our program, that's not PT, right? So, what was different about what you did at Wealth versus what you saw them giving you or them leading you down?
Well, for one, I guess I've kind of fallen off the train now because I'm going through wealth. Like I'm just gonna do it repeatedly. Like I think I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
probably do it every day for like as long as I'm working out. But
Sure.
like the first round of it, I was pretty much still in pretty severe pain through like I'd say 4-ish weeks. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the big thing was like those first 4 weeks, I was pretty diligent about uploading daily videos of at least the stuff that I wasn't comfortable with. And then getting the feedback from either like you or Andrew, or I don't remember the third person that would
Eyes
feedback's
in there.
name. But they were
Yep.
pretty good at just like tiny little tweaks that you don't even think about, like, and that was stuff that I wasn't like, I think I have pretty decent form, but like there's always certain things on an individual basis that it's, you guys seem to find and be like, okay, here's what works. Also, the good feedback was like, all right, well, right now, like everything causes pain. How much should I be
Sure.
pushing this, It's like if you told me to just avoid pain, like I'd lay in bed all day. So it was nice
Right.
to
You
feel
wouldn't do
like
anything.
it was nice to hear though, okay, well, push through pain to a certain tolerance and like so you can still do stuff. It's just
Right.
not, like I wasn't squatting or like actually working out in the way that I'm used to for probably 5 weeks, which I mean in
Right.
reality
Yeah.
is not that long to take off
Not at
with
all,
something like
right?
this. Right.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah,
really nice. The coaching calls and like the immediate feedback, like having someone there.
mhm.
That was a big thing. And then the big difference was just like a lot of movements I had never done. Like I had never done any footwork in my entire life other than like, running obviously, but I've never done certain like focusing on
Right.
the small muscle type stuff from the ground up was pretty beneficial, I would say.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it's it's honestly it's sad that you think, I'm very grateful for the reach that we have at Wealth. And I mean, you can see we have thousands of members in the program, but it makes a massive impact. And at the same time, it doesn't even scratch the surface with how many other Dillons or Elliots there are out there. Just, taking the MRI at face value, being like, hey, I have an 11 mil bulge. It's never going to get better because this is what I'm told. And here are the 6 exercises I have to do for the rest of my life. So when you're told that, like, what made you want to try Wealth, or like what made you kind of be like, I don't really think that's true. There's got to be a better way.
I was just like from the get-go, I've always been super against surgery. I've never had surgery for anything. I've had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stitches, but never like actually any surgery or nothing like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I just literally looked like I didn't know anything about you guys. I just looked up disc herniation rehab program. And then, I started looking on social media and it took me a while to actually find Wealth because like some of the ones I looked up, everything pops up on Google and it's just these like same thing. It's these pre-made sheets that you have access to. And I'm
Right.
like, I'm already doing this stuff and it's not working. And then, you scroll down a little bit or you look through it enough and then I found Wealth. And that's I think when I contacted you
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and more it was just reading success stories. But yeah, I just looked it up and I was like, I do not want surgery. So like anything I can
Sure.
do to avoid it. But like
Okay.
some people are other than that. Like I've had friends who like they got disc herniation surgery at like 16 years old, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Some people are just more open to going under the knife, but I'm kind of more on the side of avoid it at all costs.
Right. Yeah. And that clearly worked out for you. So you texted me, I want to say probably about 4 weeks into your journey,
Yeah.
and you said, I don't want to jinx it, but this is, the first day or two that I haven't been popping handfuls of Advil. Why don't you
Yeah.
take me through like what did that pain medication kind of look like at the beginning of your journey? Why were you taking that? And then how did you kind of transition off that?
So when I went in for the MRI, they put me on 2 weeks of high dose prednisone, which is like a corticosteroid, and muscle relaxers. I hated the muscle relaxers. I didn't take those at all. But the corticosteroid like worked while you're taking it, and then as soon as I got off of it, it just went back to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was taking like, I don't know, probably 15 ibuprofen a day, which I knew was just terrible, but that was just like to get out of bed. Uh, I have a pretty high pain tolerance, but I was doing that for like 4 weeks. And then about 4 weeks in is when I like woke up and I like wasn't having muscle spasms or anything like that. That was
Four
the
weeks
first time
after.
the program started. Yeah. So like
Okay.
previous to starting the program, I had done two cortisone or two, what are they called? Two epidural shots, like in the
Okay.
hospital. Both of those didn't work. I went through 2 rounds of corticosteroid, like high level. I went through a round of oxycontin, and then they took me off all that because it wasn't working and just said take Advil essentially, like as you need. And I was like, well, I need it a lot right now. So basically, I
As you
tried.
need.
They put me through like everything you could do, like two epidurals, which are miserable if you've ever had one.
I have not.
Those
I
didn't do
have.
those didn't do a thing. They just made it. One of them made it worse. The other one didn't do a thing.
Really?
Like the corticosteroids, they worked until you stopped taking them, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's just a blanket. But yeah, eventually it was just like probably 2 months of like that, and then I started the program, and then 4 weeks later, I was pretty much off of it.
Wow. That's incredible, man. That's so cool. How did you so what was the time frame that you were dealing with sciatica or just like really out of your element
So what I
prior?
probably started the program early January, I would say, if
You
that's
did.
right.
You did, yeah. It
So
was very early January, first week of January.
so I herniated it the first week of October.
Okay.
I went through like 3 days of unable to walk, and then I went through like probably a week and a half, 2 weeks of the first round of steroids. Those wore off. Then I went in for the MRI, so that's a week later.
Mm-hmm.
The follow-up was a week after that, then another round of steroids, and then the first epidural. 2 weeks later, second epidural. And then from then till January was basically just like trying my own PT or whatever it was, and a bunch of Advil essentially. It was like beginning of October to January was like, like it was just constant pain, like getting out of bed, sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't hardly eating. Like I would walk as much as I could, but it was like almost I wanted like a cane with me because it was
Right.
sciatica. It was sciatica from my hip all the way down to my toes.
Yeah, I had that same thing. I don't wish that upon anyone.
Dude, it was
We had
miserable.
one of our members, John Snow, just posted a video, or we posted his testimonial last week, and his goal is to get back into pro dirt biking. And I mean, he said he's broken tons and tons of bones in his career of BMXing and dirt biking, and none of that stacks up to sciatica. I used to swim and play water polo, so I haven't broken any bones in my life. All I've dealt with is sciatica, and I was like, man, I got to imagine this is probably one of the worst things, right? But to all of our members dealing with various injuries, a lot of them are dealing with sciatica. We all have what the pain we know is the worst pain that we felt. So I think everyone's kind of on that same level. I think people would probably resonate with this, but how did you feel mentally? How did that start to affect your mental health and mindset for those 3 months when you you didn't know what the solution was, and all that was being thrown at you was medication, epidurals, and that stuff's not working? Like, how did that make you feel on a day-to-day
Oh,
basis?
I tried to hide it, but like my girlfriend is a therapist, for example. She's got her own private practice, but she was already like, do I need to like schedule you like a client because you like are getting signs of depression as these go on? Like 3 months, it was mentally because I'm used to working out like 2 hours a day every day and like going on hikes and doing fun stuff on the weekends. I play hockey, I play volleyball. I couldn't do any of that, so it was definitely the most like mentally draining time I've had for sure.
Yeah.
It was pretty depressing.
Yeah. Was there a point in that time period of those 3 months when, like, did you lose hope? Did you have
Oh yeah,
thoughts of like, hey, this is gonna be the new reality?
I never had the new reality, but I definitely was like ready to push up surgery. I was like,
Mm,
nothing's working. Like, I'm ready to get surgery next week. I definitely had
wow.
that thought. I never had the thought of I'm never going to do stuff again. I just thought surgery was going to be like inevitable.
Hmm.
So that
How
was
did you
pretty dark
feel?
too.
What was dark?
Just like the thought of you have to have surgery, like nothing's working. You can't do anything without it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think, how did you feel when you walked in and they were like almost alarmed, like, wow, this is like the most magnificent herniation we've ever seen?
It was
Almost
pretty wild.
impressed. Yeah.
Because he walked in and he was like, well, I'm surprised you're walking, to be honest, because usually people are in here with like 2 to 5 millimeter herniations and we're scheduling surgery. So he was ready to schedule it like the next day.
Yeah.
Um, so that was an interesting feeling too, because they're just ready to push it on you no matter what.
Right. Right.
Um,
And then, yeah. And then you got better, and then you called him, and then was it almost a state of disbelief from the doctor that you could actually be better?
no, it was not a state of disbelief. It was almost a state of like, are you sure you don't want to get the surgery? Like, come back in. It was almost like a business call more than anything, which was really weird to me. Like, he still wanted me to do it. And I'm like, I'm telling you I'm better. I'm telling you I want to cancel this surgery. I get that you're losing business, but you should be happy. And he wasn't.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was another time where I was not fond of the guy for sure. It doesn't help that the doctor was this like older, out of shape guy, which I'm sure is his like definition of active is the 5 minute walks a day.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's what's crazy too. I think when you see a lot of professionals giving advice, like, when I was given the advice to not squat or deadlift, it was coming from a chiropractor that frankly like doesn't really believe in weightlifting or thinks all weightlifting is bad. So I had people in the clinic telling me like this lady who was treating me. I don't know what she was doing, some laser treatment and heat pack stuff, but she was telling me how bad squats are for your knees in general. And I looked at her, I was like, you've never lifted a weight in your life. Like, frankly,
Right.
like you don't resistance train, right? So I think there's a big disconnect there, in which we have certain medical professionals giving advice on how doing resistance training or weightlifting or doing these things is unhealthy for you. But really what it is they don't have a background of that movement aspect or lifestyle modification, nor would they really want to get into that. So I think, one thing that I had to think about too was when my chiro was telling me you're never going to get better, I had to think like, hey, do I want this lifestyle that he's even living?
Right.
And it made me think like, no, I don't. Like, so why don't I really should be taking his opinion with a grain of salt and go and find someone who is living a lifestyle that I want to live. And that's how I joined Andrew's program. He was the first person I ever saw that had a herniation that supposedly had gotten rid of that pain and was back to lifting. I was like, I'll go follow one person who's telling me I can rather than 100 people who are telling me I can't.
Right.
And I think that's
No,
probably
no,
some of the
it seems like no one that's like doing better than you or has gotten through something like this is ever telling you to slow down. It's always the people who haven't done it or don't want to do it. They're technically below you, if you will, but they're always the ones saying, "Oh, you can't do that," or "Don't do this," or that's what it seems like, at least.
yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, I think it's yeah, I don't know. I don't have any specific thoughts on that right now. I just think that some of these people who are giving advice are not, they're kind of just pushing what they know. And I guess probably in their regard, they would say that we're doing the same thing, like we're not ever going to go ahead and cut people open. We don't offer surgery. So, I mean, really our goal at Whealth is to be able to offer an option for people where, hey, if lifestyle modification and movement and nutrition and recovery and sleep, if those things are what you align with and those are the things that you would like to take control of, let's go ahead and see how we can maximize those aspects of our life first and foremost, and
Right.
then let's see what type of medical interventions we need. And I think a lot of times, I won't say 100% that, I mean, clearly there are absolutely instances in which surgery is warranted, but you think about your situation right there, it was not a situation in which it was warranted. Like, you just needed a really good rehab program, right? So yeah, that's awesome that you figured that out. What would you say, as you went through, that first 4 weeks where you were still in pain, what were some of the key takeaways, whether it be, mental or physical, with the program?
I guess mentally would be just stick with it, like it's not instant. Like even after the first week, I think I texted you and I was like, how soon should results be coming? Because I really didn't feel any different pain wise until about week 4. But it was like
Mm-hmm.
week 4, it was like 1 day difference. It went from, like just the same as it was through weeks 1 through 4. And then the next day it was like a light bulb turned on or something.
Wow.
Like I
Yep.
woke up and it was just a complete switch. Um, so I guess mentally it was just like I would say just stick with it, do exactly what it says. For me, the biggest thing was do less. Like, you know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
always wanted to like throw weight on the bar or get back to where I was. And I was like, no, just do exactly what the program says. I
Right.
walked a lot during it too. Like I was always biking. So I would say like, I don't know. I always found that like blood flow seemed to help it a little bit. So anything you can do on top
Mm-hmm.
of it. But in terms of like lifting, working out, I'd say just stick to exactly what the program says.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the concept of the overnight success, whether you look at, businesses that IPO and they just blow it out of the water, like, an artist has a song and it just goes absolutely crazy. And like you have that concept of an overnight success, but in any instance, I think for, 99.9% of those, like when it changes from one day to the next, it's because of all the work that you didn't see. And
Yeah.
for you, that overnight success, what happened from day 28 to 29, I've seen people, and I think, maybe some people here who are listening, they do the program longer, Dylan, than 4 weeks until they feel results, right? So I would say 4 weeks is actually pretty fast. Like when I take phone calls for Whealth, as I'm sure you know, and people always want to know that question, like, how long is it going to take to feel better? One, I don't know,
Right.
two, I can kind of give you a time range. I really try to set the expectation with people like, hey, to really make some meaningful changes, stuff, we need to be consistent with it. And secondly, I kind of try to mark that expectation for several months.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yeah, I think I've seen people, it's that same story. It takes them to module 6, 7, or 8, or it's like, man, I didn't really see any improvement for this period of time, and then the next week just got so much better. So I think that is a great reminder to stick with it, even if you're not seeing that. How did you like that's I think sometimes that's easier said than done though. How did you like continue to remind yourself that you do have to stick with it, and it will work even if you can't see those results?
I mean, for the people that aren't in my situation, that are not seeing the results quickly or whatever it is,
Mm.
I don't know. I guess I would just say, look at all the stories that you guys have put out of people that it did work for. It's not always going to be 4 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. I mean, I'm almost done with the second round through it, and I doubt I need to do it every day, but I'm probably going to do it repeatedly just going forward, just as a maintenance thing, just because I know how well it worked for me. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess if people are lacking discipline or whatever it is, motivation to do it, that's probably more where it comes from. But that's like the opposite of at least where I'm at with it. My whole thing was telling myself just stick to only the program. I'm probably not the guy to ask of how to stay motivated.
Right. Yeah, that honestly that's tough too. I think, yeah, I've been feeling in a slump, I would say, motivation, excitement wise, probably the past like month and a half or so with working out, but I haven't missed a workout. But it's just
Right.
like I'm down there in the gym and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And that has felt like a slump. But I think, yeah, you build those habits and whatnot. And I think at times it is easier to build the habit or stick with the habit when everything's feeling great. Like on mod 4, once you started feeling good, you're like, oh yeah, I'm stoked to do module 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 because I feel great, right? So I think,
Right.
yeah, it is a tough situation in which people have to keep coming back to the program, and they don't see that result, and that's just how it is. And so I think there are, you were touching on that earlier, which I think is really important for members listening, or other people who are listening who aren't part of our program. It's great to be connected with you know coaches who are looking out for you, like, or medical professionals who really are looking out for you, people who can help you out, people who can give you accountability. And I think that was something that you touched on too, was you posted your movements in the program of the workouts. That's something that I see with our members who struggle more than they need to. They're like, hey, this is not getting better in this amount of weeks or whatever. So we'll say, hey, like, post some videos up in the Facebook group. And sometimes there's a resistance to that, or they say, I'm moving well enough. What would you say to that?
I'd say you'd be shocked because I've gotten compliments like multiple times throughout my life of, hey, you have like really good form and you do this and this. And I always thought I did, but then you put it in here and it's like the smallest little tweaks, like, oh, your background's a half an inch, or, your butt doesn't go back quite far enough, or you're not engaging your hamstrings, or whatever it is. I mean, I think there's always a little bit of tweaking that can be done. There's a reason you're probably hurt. You probably did something wrong and you could probably use some coaching advice.
Yeah,
Um,
we're not perfect, right? And it's
right.
really difficult to have that awareness with the movement. And really, that's the goal, is through this coaching where you put a video up of this workout and you throw up your videos. It's not necessarily be like, hey, if you keep moving like that, you're going to get injured. But it's like, are you aware of how you're moving right now?
Right.
And the way that you think you're moving, you think it's doing one thing and it's actually doing another. So I think it's really about matching that awareness with your goal and your awareness with your body, so that you can, like, if your goal is to purposely round the back, that's great. If your goal is to keep the back neutral and really get into the hips, like, you should be doing that if that's what you think you're doing. And I think that's where the disconnect is. People think they're moving in one way and they're not. And of course, pain is more complex than just the movement, but that's a big piece. I think people start to build confidence and awareness with their movements that they've never had before.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I mean, even, I follow
So,
Andrew now pretty closely, and like he just does some of the stuff that it's scary to do, but like I'll do it with lightweight now, and it's
sure.
more like movement exploratory than everything, but it's a cool way to find what you're capable of. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think So you're about 4 months. So you're 7 months post injury. You're 4 months post what I would categorize as the best part of your journey, which is wealth. I'm biased, but sounds like it's been really good since then. You're off pain meds. You avoided surgery, which is absolutely killer. It sounds like you're pretty much out of pain on a day-to-day basis. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I still have like the normal soreness from like working out and being active, but on a like the pain is gone.
Right. Okay. So sciatic pain is gone. And I think, yeah, that's a great differentiation. That's why we at Wealth, we try really not to say ever pain free because, like, I just hit legs yesterday. That's a pain. I'm sore, right? But I think it's like, what type of pain are we used to? So sciatic pain's gone.
Yep.
Quote, that bad, debilitating, depressing pain is gone. That's awesome. I think what I'm seeing with you and what I've sensed and what you've texted me is there are still reservations in your confidence with new movements, right?
Yeah, just for some of it, like, I mean, I don't know if I'll ever like deadlift super heavy again or go for like a one just because it's not worth it.
Hold on. You told me you deadlifted 450 pounds, but what is heavy to you if that's not?
Well, that's relative, like I used to do it. So it's like
600?
Yeah, plus but like the
Oh
call
my.
and whatnot. So it kind of depends on who you're talking to, but I don't know if I'll ever do
Absolutely.
like stuff like that. Other than
Gosh.
that, I mean, like I ran a half marathon the other weekend. I've biked, 50 plus miles since with no pain. I mean, I'd say I'm pretty much back.
Yeah, I would say on most standards, right? And again, it's personal, but I think we have also, it's a good he's not back to where he was. And I think that's a mindset too that we're always battling with. And also what's just important, like, hey, it's great to compare yourself to other people, but it's also great to just be like, hey, I'm just gonna get better for myself.
Right.
Right. And that's really the goal. Dude, some massive squats, some massive deadlifts. You just ran a half marathon. So, in all regards, you're absolutely crushing it. What would you say are some of your goals moving forward now?
Stay out of pain. Like that's why I'm still doing the program. I would say I don't need it, anymore. Like I wouldn't have to run through the whole thing, but I'm on the plan of literally I'm just gonna keep unless you guys roll out a new one. But,
Well, we got the strength and conditioning program. I think
yeah,
you'd
I've
like
kind of
that a
got
lot,
that.
honestly.
I've kind of got that one on my own, but the
Yeah,
disc
you
rehab
might have to
program,
teach us the strength and conditioning program.
Limitless one. Like I just as soon as I was done with the first one, I just restarted it up. So I'm just gonna keep rolling through it and ideally just stay where I'm at forever. I never want to go back to herniating it again. So, and I'm fully on board with Wealth. I mean, I couldn't speak enough about it. So I think you guys should be in all hospitals and everything. The PT that people would see from you guys would put a lot of doctors out of work.
It would, right? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's what are, to summarize like the experience, and I know it's probably very difficult, but what people think PT as with a 6 exercise sheet or 6 exercises versus what you saw in Wealth, how would you describe that difference if you could? I know it's a loaded question.
I guess I would say the comparison would be day one of Wealth, like module one, day one, would be similar to like the whole PT program that the doctor sent me.
It just never progresses.
Right.
Right.
That's literally what it was. It was a one sheet, 6 exercise, do it 3 times a week and repeat. It was like glute bridges,
Right.
the side clams or whatever they're called. It was nothing, and it was definitely not personalized. Like I would not have been sending videos to my doctor saying like, how does this look? Or what is your feedback on this? Or how should I be progressing this? It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
So Wealth is definitely more in depth. It's more complicated. And it works on stuff that like, I mean, as well versed as I thought I was pretty clueless when I found out how in depth Wealth goes.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that I never even thought of, which was great.
Mostly movement related or
Yeah, just like I never worked on small muscle stuff. Like I was always going to the gym, do your squats, do your lunges, do your pull-ups or whatever it was, but it was like, okay, now you're training like your march holds or you're doing like the foot grips or you're doing like hip circles on the side. Like when I did my first, I don't know what they're called, hip cars or hip circles
yeah,
on the side and I couldn't figure out. I had to like sit in front of a mirror for like 30 minutes to try to figure out how to make that work or look right.
right.
So it's just a lot of cool stuff that you like never think of doing, but is actually apparently very, very beneficial.
Right. And I think I had this experience. So I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you had put up some really impressive numbers in the gym, and I know you were doing the half Ironman training. So all intents and purposes, a very stellar athlete, very strong. You have never had a problem pushing into challenge. Now you come and you do the Whealth program and you're doing a hip car, and that's taking you 30 minutes to figure out. How was that humbling? Was that like, how did that affect the ego?
I wouldn't say it affected the ego too much because I was more at the point now where like the ego's gone, just get out of pain.
Okay.
But like it was interesting for sure. Like everything was cramping. Like my hips were always cramping when I tried new stuff, like the I don't know what you call it, where you lay on the side and you do like inside leg lifts and outside the Jane Fonda.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
first time I did those, I could do like one of them, and I had to stand up because I was cramping everywhere, like just from the get go. So I was like, all right, this is probably the stuff that I need to be doing more than the stuff I'm
Right,
used to.
right.
That's cool.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, so in terms of like practicality advice to members who are going through the program, what would be your top 3 tips that you would give?
I guess number one, I would say just stick to the program exactly until you're out of pain. And if it, it's probably going to take a different time frame than mine. Mine was pretty quick, it sounds like. But if you're
What
not
about
out
if
of
you're
pain,
not out of pain?
if you're not out of pain, I would say stick to exactly what it is. And then I guess for me, the second one that I've been really focusing on now is like, say I don't have time to do the full day. Like right now, like I didn't have time today to do the full day. I did like the warm up, and then I picked 3 of the movements that I was worst at or needed the most work on. And those are the ones that I focus on. I feel like they give the most benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess I don't really have a third other than if you're like me, don't push your boundaries too quick. Like I think I could have really set myself back if I would have tried, going back
Mm-hmm.
to the old regiment too early, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Um, but in terms of
Yeah.
wealth, I don't have much advice other than just stick to it and know that if it worked for me, it can probably work for most people. Just be
Right.
stubborn.
You
Just be stubborn with it.
Yeah, and use the coaching, right? Be open to that coaching. I mean,
Oh
that's why
yeah, I
we're
guess
there.
that's a big one. Submit the videos. Put the videos up every day. I'm not doing it now just because it worked and I feel like I'm moving pretty good. But I would say the videos were beneficial. Andrew knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he does. Well, so, I think these are all just general proxies for life. I mean, who am I? Like, I'm 27. I know we have some members. Our eldest, I think, 72 or 73. So I know there's a lot of experience in life that others have that I don't necessarily have, but also at the same point in time, I feel like my injury has taught me so much. And I think a lot of our members realize that. Like, the injury and the rehabilitation process is a massive proxy for all things life. I mean, if I just recapping what you said stick with it, even if you're not seeing the results. Like, okay, anything in life,
Right.
some is better than none. I mean, you said if you can't do the full thing, do some of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
not this all or nothing mindset. Like, throw in a few minutes, stack that up,
Yeah.
and then be open to coaching, be open to feedback. Those are all very similar to pain and rehab, but anything else in life.
I had a pretty good
I think.
chiropractor for mine too. I don't know. I mean, you've seemed like you've had kind of a negative experience with a chiropractor, but I wasn't getting adjustments, but mine had like a traction table, if you've ever been on one
Mhm.
of those,
Yeah.
where it pulls at like a certain oscillation. It's not just like an inversion table, but it actually pulls. I don't know. For me, it seemed like it did a lot. I was on it twice a week for the whole 12 weeks. But I mean, if anyone asks about that, I would recommend that as well on top of Wealth. I mean, I think Wealth was
Hmm.
primarily to give, you know, the rehab stuff, but I mean anything you can do on top of it is not going to hurt, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's about finding those tools that help you out. I did the traction table. It did absolutely nothing, but
Really?
also, I mean, here's the thing though. Like, I was on the traction table for a month, and then I'm asking the chiro for the PT, and he's printing out the piece of paper for 5 exercises in ice and heat. So I'm like,
Right.
of course that's not going to. So, I think that's another great piece of advice. I know it sounds like, like the goal is not to absolutely talk bad about, every sort of treatment and this or that. I think people do need to find what works. I would say very strongly, this is my belief, that all of those things can be great supplemental tools, supplements. Take up a little piece of the puzzle, do it if you want, but that's like, make sure you are really looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, am I doing the work that I don't really want to do? Or am I doing the work? Like, and if you are, great, then experiment with other things. But if you're not, like, that is really where you should put your time and energy and money. Like, get
Yeah,
down on the floor, do the movements, eat the food, like, work on your mindset, sleep, do all of those things, and really take hard inventory. Like, are you doing those things first and foremost?
yeah, yeah. I would agree. I mean, I think movement is the number one priority for sure for anyone out
Mm-hmm.
there. This will teach you how to
Yeah,
do it. That's for sure.
yeah. I think the movement piece is it's awesome in the program, because I think it gives people what feels like a tangible anchor point. Like, hey, here are the videos, here are the workouts, here's how I can get better. I think the mindset stuff can be, for some people, more debilitating than others based off of the fear and the anxiety. And I know a lot of people come with potentially more baggage and more fear and uncertainty than others. For you, for instance, when I asked you how it felt to be told that you're not going to get better by the doctor, like, you process that emotion as anger. And I felt that as extreme anger as well. Yeah, it really pissed me off when he told me I should never do any of that stuff, and pretty much told me I would never get better. Like, that would be my emotion. It was a middle finger, like, F you, I'm never coming back. And of course, that led to tears. I called my brother, I cried. But I think other people process that when they're told X, Y, or Z, it turns into, higher levels of self doubt, higher levels of fear, higher levels of anxiety. Maybe they're not so angry at the professional, because maybe what they think they've been told is just the truth. And it's not like the professional. I'm not even saying that anyone's trying to be mean or limit you, but maybe they're not even angry. Maybe they just internalize that. So I think that is a difficult piece that some of our members do have to deal with, that it seems like you process the emotions in a different way. So if you had people, or you could give some advice to people who were coming in with, more self-doubt or uncertainty around, the sciatic, or if it's going to get better or whatnot, what would you say to that?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm probably the wrong guy for a mindset question just because I've kind of like suck it up and do it. It'll work. But I guess if you had people on the opposite side of me, I'd say read the stories. I mean, how many thousands of people's
Mm-hmm.
stories have you guys put out there? It's like, if it works for some people, it can definitely work for others. And if you're hesitant about it, I mean, the worst case scenario, in my opinion, is surgery. And if that's what you're being told that you need, then why not try every possible avenue before that? And then you can always use
Mm-hmm.
surgery as a fallback point. I mean, if you
Right.
want to get
Right.
surgery, then whatever, go get surgery. But if you're like me and I mean, I'm assuming 99% of the people that sign up for this program are signing up because they don't want surgery.
Yeah.
And so in
Yeah. I
that case,
think,
it's like, what's the downfall to doing everything you can to getting out of it? What's the downfall to putting everything into this program?
yeah, I think there's obviously, again, there's obviously instances in which surgery is warranted. You lose your bowel control, bowel function. Drop foot is something where you definitely are seriously considering that. And what's also really interesting, our two latest testimonials, John Snow and Greg Willett, they both had drop foot and reversed it. So those are the ones where people call in and they're like, hey, I have this. It's like, we really have to be very cautious and say, hey, yeah, definitely listen to your medical provider. But they chose to do the program instead of that. So, I mean, there's been nothing short of remarkable testimonials and healings, and, people really battling through it. So I think people do have to, at the end of the day, they have to be advocates for themselves. And again, just ask yourself, hey, what pool of people do I want to kind of derive inspiration from? And I think what you're getting at is, maybe you have maybe a more hard, stubborn mindset, and motivation is frankly not an issue. And for you, you're like, hey, I'm going to do the program because what's my other alternative? That's kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
But for people who are dealing with other emotions, I think it is very helpful to look for inspiration from other people, because
Yeah.
so many other people have been through the physical and mental pain. And that's why we brought you on, Dillon, because I think anytime someone comes in and battles those odds, it's so cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak enough about it. I've sent it. My buddy broke his neck. I already told him, when you're out of the neck brace, jump on this
Right.
shit. So
yeah. Whealth will help out with that.
Hey, Cameron, or Dillon.
Hey, yeah.
Hi, Jessica here. So I have a question for, I guess, both of you. So like when you talk about like sciatica, does sciatica mean it's always going down your legs? I guess is my question.
For me, it was. I don't know enough about the nerves to know if it goes other places. For me, it was always in like 100. It was never gone. It was in my hip all the way down the back of my leg to my ankle and then to my toes. But I don't know if it can go other places. I'm not a doctor.
So like,
So what's
go ahead, Cameron.
Question? Like, what's the question there? Are you asking, does it have to go down to the feet, or
I can answer it.
Hey, what's up, Andrew?
Hey, so sciatica is technically anything that goes past the knee. So if it stops before the knee, it's not technically considered to be sciatica yet.
Okay, so that kind of answers my question, only because like, so that's not happening to me. So I had an injury. I was rear-ended in a car accident 2 years ago. My first year after my injury wasn't like too bad, but I feel like I kind of pushed myself in the gym because I thought I was doing better. To Dillon's point, it's like you think you're better and then you overdo it, and I feel like that's what I did. And like lately I've just been having a lot of pain, thinking almost to the point where I'm like, shit, like I really want to get surgery because I feel like this is going to be my life, and I don't obviously want to get surgery. That's not what I want to do, but I feel like I am in such a deep place where I feel like, well, that's the only thing that's going to help me. But my pain is never going even down my legs at all. It's just even in my hip, tailbone, lower back area. So then I guess that's why I asked the question, because to me, I feel like it's not really like, I guess like disc related, because that's what I originally was told, that I had 2 herniated discs in my lower back. So I'm just like, go ahead.
If you want to answer, Cameron, that's fine. I just hijacked the call for a sec.
Hey, no, go ahead, throw in your piece.
I was going to say that you could consider it to be pseudo sciatica, which is not really a real thing. It's more so that there are trigger points either in the glute medius, the piriformis, maybe deep in the pelvic floor muscles that are referring pain down the thigh or down into the hip, however far it's extending. Mm-hmm. But if it's going past the knee and you're getting like a burning, fiery sensation down into your legs, that would be, sciatica. But if it's not, then it's often, you could look at it as being just basically trigger points, which there is doubt about whether or not those actually exist. Although, people that do acupuncture and dry needling can quickly resolve some of those things. It comes down to hip mobility and strengthening. Again, have we seen videos from you before in the program?
It's been a long time. It's honestly been a while. So I will say I was doing the program. I probably was like a month into it, and I had to move, and then I just had a bunch of shit going on, and I honestly just put it off.
That's life.
Yeah. And I kind of just let it be. And then lately it's just been kind of bad where I'm like, I need to start doing Whealth again. And then I actually, to be honest, like last year I like saw a physical therapist only because like the only thing that bummed me out about Whealth is that I feel like I wasn't able to actually like have a hands-on help. But obviously I know that's what the community is for, obviously. But I feel like that was like my troubles, because I just feel like, what if I'm doing the wrong things at home? And I know at one point I was, and then I was kind of hurting because I was doing something wrong, which scared me. Obviously, no one wants to hurt more, obviously. So yeah, you kind of hold back from doing certain things because you're just scared to be in more pain,
Mine was too. Like the only time mine flared up was what I was mentioning, like when I would not concentrate on picking up my dog. But as soon as I got on this and started focusing on stuff, I mean, I can't speak enough on what this program does for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were, I think, Jessica, what I'm hearing too is you started and you fell off. And I think we have to be honest about that. I think we want to get back and be consistent, and we're really here to support you, and we're here to support anyone. I think when people present, challenges that they're having, one of the first questions is like, hey, are we working with you? Are we helping you out in the community? Dillon is a great example of that. This was something I wrote down before. I remember a post of him. He was in his garage. He lives in Minnesota, and he was shirtless wearing oven mitts. I think it must have been, like 10, 20 degrees in the garage. And I texted you. I was like, dude, you're a savage. But that's a little bit, more committed than we probably see. But I think that's a level of like, hey, I'm not making any excuses. I'm going to get it done. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. He's wearing oven mitts in his garage. It's dedication, right?
10 degrees ain't cold up here. 10 degrees ain't cold up here.
Yeah. So, I think Jessica, like, we'd love to help you out, but definitely get some videos in there.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And then, so Dillon, David had a question for you. Did you ever have any flare-ups or setbacks, and how did you handle it? Did you ever have, painful shocks? So pretty much pain that made you fearful of movement. And if so, how did you move past that?
I only had one, and it wasn't caused by anything other. Well, I was playing in a hockey tournament like a month and a half ago up north, and I got checked from behind pretty hard, and that flared it up pretty good, but it was not sciatica flare up. It was just like a muscle tightness flare up. So I knew it wasn't like the disc didn't herniate again, because like sciatica is so much worse than muscle spasms. I'm sure all of you know that. But essentially, I took 2 days completely off after. I just iced it. And then the third day, just jumped back on the program. And the fourth day, it was back to normal. But that was the only scare I've had. And that was just, I'm sure that would probably hurt anyone,
Right.